Good evening, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards over on Twitter. And after 6 to 7 months of National Hunt quietness and hibernation away from the Twitter sphere and the YouTube, I've been on it to be fair, a fair bit, but obviously with the private service going on, I've been a little quieter than normal. But we are back. We are back for the flat season. I have been quiet so far. There's good reason for that. Most people probably saw I went to 2,000 guineas, and it was fairly notable that a lot of horses, after possibly a very wet winter, and obviously still going now, wet winter, spring, now coming into summer, and it's still wet. Plenty of horses were miles behind it, whether they're behind their work, they just weren't winning first time out, and it just looked like it wasn't going to be a great time to start punting away and just give it 4 6 weeks on the jump scene. I just don't do that. I just don't want to obviously give any time away. Any time's wasted with obviously the Cheltenham build up and everything. But on the flat, I'm more than happy to just walk away and then come back when I think that the book's starting to turn around or when the racing starts to get better. And fortunately, we got the double header. So last week was really good. You had the 1,000 guineas and the 2,000 guineas. You had Grade 1 winners winning both races, Group 1 winners winning both races. And the form's starting to come around. Aidan O'Brien's getting a few more runs into his horses. And it's not just him. So everyone obviously always targets Aidan O'Brien. He had such a good crop of 2 3 year olds, and they're not performing so far. I think he's only had one place in all of the classics so far, and that was obviously last weekend. The filly, what's her name, who finished third, the Marcel Boussac winner, opera singer. That's the only one he's had, and obviously he had on paper his best 2 and 3 year olds last year, especially 2 year olds that we've seen for quite some time. But a lot of people are saying he's got no good ones this year already. I know this is not the majority, but I have seen people say it on Twitter. It's just simply not true. It just hasn't come to his time, and you can't just stand there and go on and on about Aidan O'Brien. There's so many trainers that have had very similar. Richard Hannon started fast, Charlie Appleby started fairly fast, but there's plenty away from those two and other trainers that they're needing a run to get their horses up and firing. And at the end of the day, for those who are not into the best trainers just winning everything, a bit like the Willie Mullins situation, people have loved it because there's been, I don't know the stats, I don't sit there and obviously look at all the numbers, but there has been an absolute multitude. I don't think any trainers won more than one of the Group 1s that we've had so far, the classics, and it's just been a wide variety. And there's a lot of, as people call them, they're not the little guys, but the smaller trainers, the lesser yards that don't have the same money and firepower. They're winning these big races, they're going well in these big races, and it's brilliant to see. It's just painful, obviously, if you put your money down. So for me, it was easier just to take a little bit of a pull and watch. And obviously, here we are going into the Oaks and the Derby this weekend, and then not next weekend, I want to say it's 2 weeks on Tuesday, might be 3 weeks, either 2 weeks or 3 weeks on Tuesday. We roll into Royal Ascot, and obviously that is the full week of it. I've gone a little bit easier this year on purpose. Had no real rush to. Last year was obviously an absolute bloodbath for punters, and I just didn't want to get too involved with everything that was going on. And you look at the markets, and outside of Kyprios, I'd be pretty sure that nearly every Royal Ascot horse is almost every favourite in the Royal Ascot races has changed at least once. Whereas normally, coming into this time of year, you might see the horse at the top of the market say 6 to 1, it wins on return, then it's 3 to 1 and shortens. But we've had so many upsets, disappointments, etc., etc. So it's been quite difficult to predict. But the good news is, it means Ascot's looking very competitive. The bookmakers aren't going to know how to price it. And I believe that once you've got a horse that's had at least one run, they should start showing their form. And as always, forgive a horse's first run and forgive a horse a run if they run below par at some point in the season. After that, then it's all down to your own interpretation of the horse. So anyway, I'm going to be going forward. I will try to get other individuals on here, so like people who I've had on, say, Meet the Punter, or people off Twitter and stuff like that, just to chat through, because it's a lot more casual. The only reason I haven't today is because this is a short notice. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible, and this is just a bit of a let's get back into it with the Oaks and the Derby. So let's get to it. Right. Anyway, so Friday, I'm recording this at 8:15 on Thursday night. For Friday, they've just put the forecast out for Epsom. The current forecast, they've missed a lot of the rain. It's still good to soft, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, give me 2 seconds. Apologies, I did just look at this. 2 mil of rain they've had today, and they've missed the particularly big showers. So obviously all this panic over there's going to be plummets of rain. It's not looking too bad, and obviously the weather is hot, so at Epsom dries quickly. So the hope for me tomorrow will be that it wouldn't surprise me if it's good to soft tomorrow, and if they miss a lot of the rain or if there is no further rain, then maybe we'll get back towards good on Saturday. But as long as we don't get huge downpour tomorrow, then at least it'll be on decent ground. So good to soft is fairly decent. Most horses handle good to soft regardless. That's one of the most important things. So anyway, let's get to the racing. I'm only going to focus on the bigger races. It's not because I don't think the other races are as good. It's just the fact that I just want to focus on those at the current time. It was interesting that obviously in the 2 o'clock in the Woodcott Stakes that Richard Hannon had the favourite, and he pulled him and he's now running his other horse. But I don't want to get into a 2-year-old favourite. I don't want to get into a 2-year-old race this early in the season. There's no real rush. So we are going to skip straight through. I've got 3 races I'm covering on the Friday. That is the Coronation Cup, the Epsom Oaks obviously, and then one of their later handicaps that I've had a bet in. So straight onto the Coronation Cup. This race is blowing my mind I don't really know where to go with it. For me, I'll go from the outside in. Time Lock, first time cheek pieces. Doesn't really have the form. Group 3 winner when beating Sweet Memories last year. That's fair form, but not Group 1 winning form. Has ran at the 12 furlongs before, so that's no issue. I like horses, if they haven't run at Epsom, they've run at Newmarket, because it just shows they handle undulating track. So Newmarket's obviously got the dip at the end of it. If you've got a horse that you know is going to handle that, then it should offer a little bit of help towards obviously knowing that they're going to handle Epsom fine. So that wouldn't be a problem for me. Is having second start for Harry Charlton, and obviously Buick takes over. When I say from Harry Charlton, it's obviously I think it's Harry and Roger Charlton to Harry Charlton, so it's not actually a change at all. But some will say disappointing when second to Outbox, but at the end of the day, as I said, it's first run back. They'll be expecting more here. But in reality, even with the weight allowance, we'll definitely need the career best to be going close here. Hamish is a horse that's got all the numbers. So, as in, when I say the numbers, like he runs to decent RPRs, let's say 118s, 119s, and he's got all the ones next to his name. He's won 5 of his last races, he finished second in the other race. But all of these races that he's winning are Group 3, and he seems to be well positioned in 12 furlong, 14 furlong races, often targeted at soft and heavy ground. And this whole 25 to 1 into like 7 to 1, that is just not for me. Regardless, even if the ground got really testing, I'd still be disappointed if one of the front 3. I'd rather back Time Lock than Hamish. Obviously, egg on my face if Hamish wins tomorrow, but I just don't think you run in that many Group 3s and then suddenly decide overnight, actually, we're a Group 1 horse. If you think your horse is a Group 1 horse and you win a couple of Group 3s, you're then going to try a Group 2 or a Group 1, but it's just not for me. The reason that it's hard to get your head around is it's very difficult to understand the way this race is going to be ran. The only real horse that's fairly obviously wanting to be run as prominent / front runner is Luxembourg. The thing for Luxembourg that I think a lot of people will overlook is the fact that he was on the go for a long time at the end of season. So last year, most horses finished around October, November, Breeders' Cup latest. But he stayed on to go to Chartin, where obviously he ran a brilliant race when finishing behind Romantic Warrior, who's a stalwart of the circuit out there. And that was obviously a great Group 1. But that was up there with his career best. I think it's probably 1 or 2 pounds of his career best, 1, 2, 3 RPR. That's top level form. And obviously he'd finished behind August Rodin previous to that. Again, top level form. But both of those two, the 2 question marks for me. One is that both of those runs were over 10 furlongs. And this race is not over 10 furlongs. This is over 12 furlongs. His 2 attempts at 12 furlongs, he was beaten 8 lengths by Hookham, and he was beaten by Alpinista in the Arc. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of horses get beaten in the Arc. But you have a look through his numbers, and they're one of the lower sets of his numbers. So as in, he generally runs to a 120 plus performer, and they were both below 120. The other question mark for me is the fact that he obviously, as I was saying, he kept on the go September, then December, then February, then March. He never really had a break. He had January off, so he had 2 months. So this is probably the longest he's had off. So April, end of May. So he's going to have been off about 2 months in this break. He ran absolutely no race when he ran in Maidan in March. So, I mean, I don't know what, I'm not going to say I don't know why they went there. But yeah, he ran absolutely no. When he was sent off 5-1, he was beaten 28 lengths, finishing 14th of 16. And that would say to me that was the end of a hard season. The question mark for me, which a lot of people forget, and a lot of people forgot with, in my opinion, with August Rodin, that people weren't considering when they were looking at his comeback run, they just say, well, he ran in Maidan 2 months ago, so obviously he's race fit, as opposed to Aidan O'Brien's other ones that are needing a run. Like, we really don't know what Aidan O'Brien's doing with this horse. This could have come back after his season, like where I said September, December, February, March. He could have come back and then he could have proper just let him off, have a nice like chill break, calm down, a bit of a time in the field, and then bring him back to racing. Or in reality, he could have just kept him in training again for obviously another further 2 months. So does that March run count as him having a run, or is he going to be like all of other Aidan O'Brien's other runners, where he's going to come on for this run? And I think that's something people aren't considering. So that's a question mark for me, as is the trip. The positive for him is the fact that obviously he is a top level graded performer. He's a Group 1 winner, and his best form, even with Emily Upjohn's allowance, they're very closely weighted. On ratings, she's rated £1 higher and she gets £3. But that could be the difference between him getting first run on her. Like, as in, so he has got to be respected. But there are those two concerns. The positive for him is he looks like he could be the only one who will want to make the run in under the jockey, obviously, of Ryan Moore. If that becomes the case and Ryan gets to dictate, he may slow it down, let the others. He can literally just play with this race and he can pick and choose. Question marks for me, though, still lie with the stamina over the 12 furlongs. And if anyone goes up and pesters him for the lead, like if Time Lock, if they push up and they say, do you know what, you're going too slow, and they push up on his tail, he's not going to just get that uncontested lead, but he won't want to give up the lead. So then you might get a bit of an injection in pace. I think everyone's assuming Luxembourg's going to get an easy lead, but I do think at least one of them will be on his tail to make sure it's an honest gallop. Over to Feed the Flame. So Feed the Flame is a bit like the Andre Fabre for me. It's the fact of, because he's French and because he's coming over, everyone's like, well, why would you come over if you don't think you've got an outstanding chance? And that is why he's so heavily respected. My issue with him is the fact that he was like, say, 14-1, then 10-1. He's been huge prices, and now you come in here and he's about 7-2. 7-2 is probably about right for his price. And my other issue with him is the fact that he doesn't seem to win the races that he should win. So like when he's sent off favourite, like he was beat by Fantastic Moon last year. He won the race. Everyone seems to hark back, whatever I've read, listened to, seen this week. A lot of people are harping back to his run last year when he beat Adelaide River, who had finished obviously second in the Derby, and then obviously Soul Sister, who had won the Oaks. I mean, that is brilliant form. There's no getting away from that, and that is his career best. But his trainer even stated, and he said that nothing went right in the arc. And he was only beaten 6 lengths, but he never looked like winning that race. That was a 118 RPR, fairly. So what I'm saying is that's a fairly strong piece of form. But he was underwhelming on both his runs this year. Both his runs this year, they have been on heavy ground and very soft ground. And his trainer did comment. He said, "Oh, and we'll get some of the soft ground this week," implying that you have to think that they've been working back from that. So these have been preps. But my question mark is he does need to bounce back. He needs to run to his form. And he's another one who's inconsistent. And on his 2 runs so far, his career best is last season. Once he got going and he got the ball rolling, he was up in the 120, 118, 116. He's up as a just below top grade 1 performer. Obviously, he is a Group 1 winner. But since coming back, RPRs of 100, 111, beaten 7 lengths, beat half a length. And these are in Group 2s. Obviously, he was only finishing in 3rd in a Group 1. But they're not the same standard Group 1s as what he's coming against today. For me, the reason you're backing him is the whole French side. I think if he had Andrew Balding's name written next to it in the same level of form, I'd be looking at this thinking, I'm not really too sure. But you have to respect the reason why. I'd imagine this has been a target for a long time for Pascal Barry. And then on to Emily Upjohn. The reason I don't really get it is she just keeps drifting. She opened about 8-11 generally, 10-11 in some places, and then she hit as big as 6-4 today. I know there was a lot of rain forecast, but you look back to her Ascot run when it was on good to soft. You watch the race, and they are kicking it up. So it's not just like as in there is juice in the ground. So I don't really see any different. The potential negatives I could see for her is the fact that obviously Kieran Schumacher's still finding his way. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, this is a big ride for him, this is a big ride for him each weekend. I didn't really believe any of those have been too big a ride because Goslin's finding his feet. Like, turn around and saying like horse, I think it was Danielle or like the one in the Musadora that was sent off favourite, like that they're big ride. Like they're Oaks trials, they're not big rides. This is a big ride. This is a big ride for multiple reasons. One, it's a Group 1. Two, it's a Group 1 for very big, powerful owners. And if you don't impress these owners, even if you're riding for John Gosden, they'd be more than happy to switch you out. So you still ride for John Gosden as number one jockey, but they'd be more than happy to say, "Oh, we're going to have James Doyle on ours," or we're going to. So then they've got no issue with doing that. And obviously, William Buick's rode for them in the past, and I don't think that would be a problem. Was his ride that bad in Maidan? Probably not, but I don't think it was. It wasn't good because of the fact that none of them were very good. Rebels Romance, well, William Buick was in the perfect position, sat in second, took up that race, and won going away. But he was in the perfect position. Like, you look through the field, and like there's quite a few horses. Like, obviously, as we know, August Rodin was out the back, and he had no chance. He had about 20 lengths to make up on the field. But Emily Upjohn, they gave way too much rope, and she was only beaten 5.5 lengths. That was below form, but you take a look at this race here last year, and she was phenomenal in this race last year. Like, as in, I say phenomenal. She beat Westover. She was sent off second favourite on the day. In fact, you go back to her form in the Oaks. She obviously finished second here, but she was harder to train in her earlier years. She was green, she was gassy, whereas the form of when she beat Westover last year was very strong form. She went passive, but again, it was a brilliant ride by Frankie Dettori. He allowed Westover. Westover didn't kick in time, and Frankie got her rolling on the outside, and she was gone. And I think Kieran Schumacher will be watching that race again and again and again, and that's what he will attempt to go for here. The problem is, I just don't know if he's got the initiative, the know-how, the experience, the knowledge, that if it's not rang strongly enough that she's settled nicely in behind, ready to take off on that strong pace, that if they do go slow, that they dawdle, that he's got in his head, okay, well, shall I take it up? Shall I go forward? Or when's my right time to challenge? And that's my thing with him. I've got nothing against him so far. I just really want to see what he's got, because I don't understand how he's got this job. Like, I look around and like you've got people like James Doyle who's left Godolphin, and I'm not saying obviously he'd want to switch straight to John Gosden or whatever, but people like that, I could sit here and tell you James Doyle would know exactly what to do in all those things. Kieran Schumacher is a bit of almost like the dark horse of the jockey world. So anyway, I've gone way too long on this race. The bottom line is Emily Upjohn for me has got the best piece of form. There are quirks with all of the front three, who I would expect the race to be between. If she continues to drift and suddenly she's 2-1 tomorrow and the rain hasn't come, then I still think she's the play of the three. But it wouldn't be strong. And you've got the option, you've got two options. You can back Feed the Flame and Luxembourg together, Dutched, and you'll get a very similar price to backing Emily Upjohn. So it's whether you'd want to take those two together or Emily Upjohn. For me, I prefer Emily Upjohn. She's proven at Epsom. She's obviously got a first and a second to her name over the course and distance. She's proven over the 12 furlongs. I don't think she'll have an issue. The ground is likely to be on the better side of good to soft tomorrow, probably even good. She's had a run, but she doesn't need to have a run. Gosden's in form, and she's getting weight from the field. So, but we'll see. That would be not my strongest of bets, but that would be my choice. Right, on to the Oaks. So I'm going to keep this fairly simple. I could go through all of these runners in obviously as much depth as you can. In reality, some of them have only had 2 runs. But the bottom line for me for this is the fact that if this was ran at, say, Chester, and all they did was change this from Epsom Oaks to Oaks Trial. So say it was at Chester, and it was over, say, 12 furlongs still. Ylang was having her first time, and this was the field. Like, I can't see a way where Ylang would not be, say, I don't know, maybe even money, maybe even odds on. The only horse that I could see perhaps, maybe obviously if you took Azalea out, just because she's a bit of an unknown, outside of that, I can't see how. So regardless of her chance in the race, from a price perspective, I know people are saying that she's short. I just completely disagree. So even if she didn't win this race, I think she's the wrong price. She's the only Group 1 winner in the race. Some of these horses, like, I'm just going to go into as quick as I can. Like, I look through and I look at some of these horses in the background. So Caught You Looking, obviously the French Raider, finishing a Group 3 in behind Azalea, the second favourite. But that was on her fifth run. She ran to 100 RPR in a Grade 3, finishing 4th. She could come on for that run. But you've then got horses like Treasure, who scraped home in a Derby trial and a Oaks trial, RPR 94. Like, you got, to me, 98 RPR best when beating Rubies Are Red. So again, that's obviously good form. It's very strange to see that Rubies Are Red sat at 8-1 and You Got To Me sat at 12-1 when obviously she beat her last time out. But we all know that's not the way racing works. It's also not, racing doesn't work just on RPRs, but they're just the simplest way of explanation when you've only got 2 or 3 runs to go off, because you're going against form of other horses that have only had 2 or 3 runs. So you've got very little other than numbers. I just looked through this field. Azalea, the second favourite for Dermot Weld, is the biggest unknown for me. She could be anything. The simple, if she could still be a superstar, like the form of her last year when she beat Wendler. Last year that form's worked out. I think Wendler won either a Group 2 or a Group 3. Purple Lily came back strong this year, who obviously she beat, and she beat her very, very easily. But Purple Lily didn't exactly frank the form. I think she finished, was it fifth in the 1,000 guineas? Yeah, fifth, running to the same level. So again, Azalea, she has to improve. She has to improve the step up and trip as well. And she has to prove she handles the trip. I don't have any issues with any of those things. She would be what I call the unknown. The biggest issue for me with that is, I mentioned on Twitter last week that Dermot Weld, I thought he'd have a good week, a good weekend, but his horses ran absolutely deplorably. Like, I know some of them are finishing second and third and stuff like that, but like some of them just like, and even continuing through, like he had an 11-8 shot beaten 29th of May, finished 10 lengths beaten, like 11-8 favourite, and I just thought the horse that I put up on the chosen word or something, or on the Sunday, 2-1, backed all the way in, absolute no show. And I would, that would worry me. I know obviously stable stars run through form, but he's 0 for 15 in the last 14 days. He hasn't had a winner in that last 14 days, and his horses are running to 53% run to form. Obviously, at the end of the day, stable stars run through that sort of thing, and this will be his main priority. He won't care about his horses, well, he will, but not to the same level like a horse running at Tipperary. But that's enough concern for me to just think, do you know what, I'll concentrate on what I'm doing. So just to go on the favourite, Ylang Ylang. So Ylang Ylang, if there is a horse over this whole next 3 days, French Derby, normal Derby, if there's a horse that has literally been targeted at an Oaks for at a race for such a long, say a year, or say 8 months, it's her. She hasn't ran at this trip. She's not guaranteed to get it, but she has got the pedigree that offers you optimism that there's a strong chance she will get it. She's out of a Frankel. So, I mean, yeah, okay, Frankel predominantly 10 furlongs, but it's very difficult to not see her improving for at least a step up to 10 furlongs. It's just if she gets that little bit further. Even in the 1,000 guineas, I know obviously it's a classic, and I know Aidan O'Brien should be going for that as a classic, but it even looked like she was ridden there as a prep. She came through late. Maybe she's not quick enough to stay up with the pace, but she was a Grade 1 winner last year, a Group 1 winner last year when she beat Shawari, and obviously that wasn't just Shawari, that was Shawari and See the Fire, who obviously ran again. And you look at the form of the 1,000 guineas, and it's already being boosted. I wasn't overly hot on a few of the forward runners. Fallen Angel, she went past Fallen Angel, skipped past her like she was standing still in those final furlongs. She only put 3 lengths plus to her, but obviously Fallen Angel was a Group 1 winner last year and has come out and already won a Group 1, the 1,000 guineas last weekend. So that form got a nice healthy boost straight away. I just think that she has got absolute standout form. On the ratings, she's rated 112. Closest to her is Azalea, who's rated 105. And the majority of these aren't even rated 100. Like Dance Sequence is 106, but she's been disappointed twice. She's disappointed twice now. She could bounce back, but you're guessing. So in simple terms, in my opinion, yes, she's in a stall 12, but she's not coming across against 11 Group 1 winners or 11 top class Grade 2, Grade 3 potential improvers. She's coming across against some very mediocre runners with some very unexposed runners. And I just think if she runs a race, she's still, even at 2-1, I think that's overpriced. So Ylang Ylang is the selection for me. Obviously, I put her up at 10-1. I put her up again at 4-1 after the 1,000 guineas. I think she's got the best form in the race. She's got a strong chance of handling it. And I do think you're going to see a different Aidan O'Brien over this weekend. Rubies Are Red is very interesting for me, and I'm going to do the same as I did. I got the 1-2 in the 2,000 guineas and the 1,000 guineas over an iron last week. This week I'm going to do the same again and go for a 1-2. And my 1-2 this week is going to be Ylang Ylang and Rubies Are Red. Um, Rubies Are Red, I don't know if I'm going to have a saver or not. She she's very interesting, but I just think where I'm turning around and saying a lot of these horses haven't achieved very much. She's another that hasn't achieved very much, and she's just so green still. Like at Lingfield, she did not handle the track at all. She was staying on at the end. She would have got up in the dying strides, but at the end of the day, one, she didn't, and two, I'm not guaranteed that she's going to handle this track any more than the other. I just think you're just going to see leaps and strides coming on by these Aidan O'Brien horses. I know obviously she's had 2 runs already, but she's only had 3 runs in her life. So it would not surprise me if she ran into a place in behind. But the selection standout for me is Ylang Ylang. Onto the 5-10. So there's 2 horses I like in this. Current prices are 7-1 and 5-2. Well, 9-4 by the looks of it. So I'll try and keep this as short as possible. 5-10, the Surrey Stakes, 7 furlongs. So Balachi, I find it hard to make too much of a case for. Evade, I class as the dark horse in the race. The 1 length beaten by Bouvertier marks her out as a strong contender in a grade 3, because that horse was I believe, a grade 1 or grade 2 winner. It's strong form, numbers add up. The question mark for me would be when you go from Andre Farb to Archie Watson. Archie Watson, very good trainer, very different. It's not an upgrade, there's no way of saying it, but there's nothing to say Archie Watson can't improve this horse. But as I mentioned, it's not just Aidan O'Brien's horses that are coming on for a run. This horse hasn't had a run, and it's also first time for a new trainer. So the dark horse, but for me, I'd look over. Pandora's Gift, a lot of good numbers, a lot of good form, a lot of ones next to the name. Even the beating of Mart, 4.5 lengths. Mart is a perennial winner, but you're looking at these races that the horse is winning, and they're not. You're looking at like listed race sort of competitions, and I know this is only a listed race itself, but the biggest thing for me is all weather. That is a concern. All of it's not on grass. So the other horse that obviously is very, very interesting is Bal Makara, for Eve Johnson Houghton and Charlie Bishop. Bal Makara was actually beaten by today's rival Zoom Zoom, only beaten 2.5 lengths on debut, but that was what I call a red hot maiden. So the winner, which is today's favourite, was Zoom Zoom, who won it well on the day. In second was Kukuli, who obviously we've seen win since this season. Bal Makara was obviously in third, who's won twice since. And in fourth was none other than Economics, who obviously hacked up in the Dante and has shown that obviously by winning twice since. That form is red hot. Since that race, obviously first time debut, Bal Makara has gone on to win twice since. The numbers don't add up to anything spectacular, like as in on the RPRs and the ratings and the form lines, but it shows the horse is very progressive, and that the 2 runs since only had that 1 run in November last year, and then the 2 runs since have both been this year. Horses can be race fit and ready to go. However, the reason, so this is selection number 1, is Zoom Zoom. I just thought the difference between backing 5-2 and 7-2 for Zoom Zoom and Bal Makara. I understand Bal Makara can improve past Zoom Zoom, but Zoom Zoom won on that day. Okay, yeah, the horse had already had a run, so was that an advantage? But the horse has continued to improve. In the ratings, already going, you look, rated £10 higher, and they've had, Zoom Zoom's had 4 runs, Bal Makara's had 3 runs. So it's not like there's stacks between them. And obviously went on to Saint Cloud and took a listed race out there. Nothing really to write home about. But obviously that Newmarket maiden that won was strong. And then in the Greenham, which obviously is normally a 2,000 guinea stakes, finished a joint second, so dead heat for second. That form was marked down as an improvement, so a £1 improvement. But I mean, I think they were disappointed on the day because we sent off 7-2 favourite. But it was very difficult to get a run there. They all finished in like almost like a heap. It was difficult to get through, and I think you should see a better horse here. The other thing that I really like about the Zoom Zoom situation is the fact Ralph Beckett wasn't in great form there. He is in much better form now. Ralph Beckett, let's have a quick look. 64%. He's had he's run at 16%, so 7 winners from 44. So he's had 7 winners from 44 runners in the last 14 days. So he's in better form. There's no beating around the bush. The horse that I also like, so that would be, however you want to word it, main bet and second bet. The other horse I do really like is Native American. So Native American is a bit more of a flyer for me, but was in the notebook from last year. Had some, not in and out form, had a massive, got absolutely hammered off the boards when Richard Fye, for whatever reason, decided after winning at York that he was going to go across to the Curragh. Very rare, you don't see it too often. Went across to the Curragh, got absolutely hammered in the betting for just an auction race, 2-year-old auction race, and he won really well. They then decided to pitch him in the deep end and go on the Grade 1, the Group 1 race over in France with Rosalian and Unquestionable, the grand or the criterion. He was only beaten 6 lengths there. He ran a solid race. He was disappointing on his return at Newmarket. It was over 9 furlongs. This is back to 7 furlongs. He was pitched wide. He missed the break. He travelled wide, but he was still travelling strongly. I remember watching that race thinking that was the horse I wanted to be on. But I don't know whether he blew up or he didn't stay the trip, but whatever, 2-3 furlongs out, his race was over and he just left to coast home. He was beaten 11 lengths on the day. But at the end of the day, even that run doesn't put him far off. His form is very closely matched with the rest. For me, I think Zoom Zoom's stand out, but I think Native American is a good price to find out how good he could be. There's just something telling me about him that he's going to be a half decent horse. And at 7-1, I want him on side as well. So a summary from day one, Friday. Emily Upjohn, depending on what price she ends up. I will put it on Twitter. Zoom Zoom and Native American in the 5-10. So they're currently 9-4, 5-2 and 7-1. And then Ylang Ylang would be the selection in the Oaks. And if doing my second selection would be the Rubies Are Red for the forecast. I might have a small saver, but I haven't had one at the moment. I'll wait to see what price she drifts to, because originally she was like 4 or 5-1 and I was like no chance, but she's out to 8-1 and continuing to drift, and I can understand why with her lack of being able to handle the track, so it wouldn't surprise me if she keeps drifting. Anyway, on to the Epsom Saturday. Let's try and make this even quicker. Again, only 3 races being covered. Any further selections I will put on Twitter, but three races that I want to focus on. So first one I want to focus on is the 125 Hong Kong Leicester Piggot Handicap. 2 horses in the market that make the market. First one is Portsmouth. Portsmouth makes the market, sat there at 4-1, was the original favourite, now sat as second favourite. That's for Andrew Bolden. Andrew Bolden has won this race twice in the last 4 years, I believe. Yeah, twice in the last 4 years and 3 times in the last 6 years. He tends to win it every other year looking at the market, and this would be the other year, so this is his turn. So, job done. Portsmouth wins. I remember watching him at Epsom on his return, and he bolted up. He was so impressive, and I was really impressed with the way he handled the track from the front, very uncomplicated, and he won well. He then went on second time out and he raced in a race which I thought was an absolute nothing race. I didn't think it was particularly strong. It was very hard. There was a horse called Ash Shariba who was sent off second favourite, but there was question marks about the fitness and all sorts of things, and I just thought this was a very winnable race, and he didn't put it to bed. That was over the 10 furlongs, which is what he's racing over here. So, but according to ratings, that was an improvement that he made. He runs off 83. He finished second off 80 there. And before that is when he bolted up, it was off 74. So he is off £9 since his handicap debut here. So he has got it to prove, but he is respected. And as I said, Epsom form is so important. The horse that really intrigues me, but unfortunately the price is very obvious, is Persica. You'll probably hear this a million times. Loads of people will not miss this horse. It is incredibly obvious. The main reason for this is because of the form in the Newbury Gold Cup, the London Gold Cup. My only concern with Persica is if I'm falling into the same trap as I did last year. Last year, the horse that won the London Gold Cup was unbelievable for Aidan O'Brien. I backed in that race Forca Timeo, who finished 1.5 lengths, 5th, for Richard Hannon. The horse then came to this race and was sent off 22-1. And I just thought, Jesus, I thought that they've not touched him in the handicap, ran really well, only beaten 1.5 lengths in the best handicaps, because it is the best handicap. Like that race, that the London Gold Cup, Desert Hero finished 7th or 8th and then won at Ascot. There was horses like Exoplanet, Bold Act. They all ran really well at Ascot. So the London Gold Cup form from Newbury will be very strong. But for whatever reason, the horse just ran to the same level. So he didn't improve. He ran 93 RPR there, 93 again, which said to me Hannon had him as good as he could have got last time out. And then he repeated that form again here, having only gone up £1. But the difference was he was 22-1. He didn't win the race, obviously, which would be part of my concern. The other part was the fact that he's 22-1. Whereas for whatever reason this time, Persico again was sent off a big price, was sent off 16-1, but has not been missed at all this time round. He was staying on very well, raced on the wrong part of the track, and everything about it. It was a career best. He enjoyed the step up to 10 furlongs for the first time. So many positives. The only difference is the fact that this horse's mark hasn't been touched, and he ran to 100 at RPR last time, and he's off 92. So technically, he'd be £8 well in. If he runs to 100 again, he'd be £8 well in. But he didn't win. He only finished fourth last time. So, but he hasn't been penalised in any sort of way. So you know he's gonna. If he runs to the same sort of level, then other horses have got to get up to his sort of form. So he's top of my shortlist for now. I am going to wait and see how his price reacts. I think if you can get, say, 4-1, something like that, then it's fair. But a few places open 9-2, that just evaporated like instantly. And now when I look, he's currently at 10-3. I mean, if you're going to get 3-1, you may as well wait till the day. It doesn't look like the most competitive handicap, like having a quick look through. But at the same time, I do worry about, obviously, my concerns with the Richard Hannon horse last year, me falling in the same trap. He is drawn stall 11, which obviously naturally you'd think, that's going to be a negative, drawn wide. But there have been 3 winners in the last 10 that have been drawn wide, so he just wouldn't want to get as far back as he did there. So Persica's on the watch list. On the back list, horses that I put up, I did put both these up on Twitter. Diomed Stakes, 235 at Epsom. And the two that I've picked are Regal Reality, last year's winner. Not a horse you can rely on whatsoever. That was at 6-1 that I put him up. I have gone win only because, as I've said, it's not a horse you can rely on. The horse does miss the break, does sometimes just not run his race. But the big thing is he's got winning form here at Epsom. He put it all in here at Epsom, and you'd have to think this is his main task, his main goal. Last season, this was one of his peaks of his season. And once he got going, he was very, very, not solid, but he ran his race, and you know what you're going to get with him. Like, as in, his best last season was 114. He ran that, 115, sorry. But after he'd had his original run, so he was well beaten behind Eddie R, he then ran 3 runs, 114, 114, 114, 115. All of those were beaten by, he won his grade 3 here at Epsom, then he was beaten by better horses, Mighty Ulysses, Chindit, Muta Sarbek. They're not bad horses. He's just getting beaten by better horses on the day. And I look through this form, and I look through this form anti-post, and I'm looking at some of these runners that are the same sort of thing. They haven't ran to those levels that I've just mentioned for him. They haven't got the same numbers. So, okay, yeah, they can improve, but you're not talking about horses that haven't had any runs. Like Umbesto's had 6 runs. So, yeah, of course, that horse can improve, but the horse needs to improve. His career best is 1-1-11, £3 off off Regal Realities. So he needs to improve. But again, I go back to, I love the fact that Regal Reality has got Epsom form. Ryan Moore's in the saddle again, so that's going to be no issue. Last year he was drawn 6, so one of the widest stalls. It was 6 of 6. This year he's drawn, I believe, 8 of 8. So he's going to be in a very similar position as he was last year. Obviously, he's not the most reliable sort, but Ryan Moore in the saddle, handles Epsom, Sir Michael Stout, had a couple of runs, and he actually ran a really, really good race at Chester when 7 lengths beaten by Passenger. He fell out the stalls, gave the race away before it even got started, and stayed on well over, obviously, the 10 furlongs. This is a drop back to the 8.5 furlongs, which he enjoyed last time. He just needs to break on terms to give himself any chance. The other horse at a bigger price that I do like is Epictetus. So Epictetus is a horse I'm not a massive fan of last year, but as the season went on, again, none of these, to be honest, are reliable propositions. But as the season went on, this horse I began to not warm to, but I thought there is a race in it. I didn't expect the horse to turn over Nostrum at Goodwood. Obviously, Nostrum has turned to be a bit of a flop in the end after a few of his big runs. But again, he's a horse that has got form. He's got form at the 10 furlongs, and not many of these have. So his sorry, at the 8.5 furlongs, and he's got the victory in the bag. But again, the biggest thing for me is he's got Epsom form. He's a winner here at Epsom, and that's again something that I like and something I like to see in the horses. I backed him each way at 10-1, and I backed Regal Reality to win at 6-1. So quick flick through, one liner on each. Investo, first time headgear, which would say that not all things are perfect at home. I thought he was very, very moderate on return, like as in he was beaten, like he didn't look like. But Virgavarians, a lot of theirs come on for the run. Got his chance, but he was short enough. Highland Avenue, Regal Reality beat Highland Avenue last year in this off level weights. Highland Avenue carries a penalty, so Regal Reality gets £3 from Highland Avenue. Highland Avenue hasn't shown anywhere near that level of form since this race last year. Royal Scotsman, you just don't know what you're going to get. He's been very disappointing since his early stages of last year in the Guineas. Silver Sword is an improver, has Epsom form. Just have to wait and see. So for me, those are my two selections. And then finally, we are on to the Epsom Derby itself. So the Epsom Derby, I don't want to say that this is disappointing, but clearly it is a disappointing turnout. I mean, when you've got, I think it's Table Talk was supplemented this week for, I want to say something like 75 grand, maybe. It was something mental. I'm sure Table Talk was one that was, it's a huge amount. I think it was 75 grand. Basically, it was a large amount to supplement a horse that has RPRs of 75 and 76 to win a derby. You're talking about a horse that's won round Chelmsford. Maybe it wasn't 75 grand because that just blows my mind even thinking about it now. But either way, they supplemented the horse. The horse has been drawn 13, so wide enough, and is 100-1 shot. That just shows you how much people are just willing to give it a roll of the dice. So, right, I'm not going to go through all of these because there's a lot of horses in here. I totally understand the whole point of you saying, okay, City of Troy this and blah, blah, blah. But some of these horses in here, I get it, it's a big field. But some of these you could literally just say no straight away. Like, especially going into, like, Voyager's a short enough price considering he's raced once. How many horses race once and then win a derby unless you are the next superstar on the block, like a Golden Horn or a Frankel? And even then, most of them you would have a second run naturally. So I'm going to keep it simple. There's a lot of horses in here who I would just say no to. I'll go away from the horses that I'll cover first. So Ancient Wisdom. Everyone's knocking City of Troy's stall in stall 1. It is a shocking stall. No getting away from that. Ancient Wisdom is in stall 11, who there has never been a winner of the Derby in stall 11. So you can stand there and knock all the other stalls all you like, but Ancient Wisdom there's been no winner from that stall either. My worry with Ancient Wisdom is the fact that he's become the wise guy horse. He was about 14-1 last week. I do think he has a very strong chance, whether you want to go win or each way, however you like to play it. But my issue is the fact that I would say he's the third string of what Appleby would have liked to have ran. So the other two he had, obviously Arabian Charm, who has had a setback since. And then before that, his horse, that poor horse that suffered his injury on the gallops at Chester when he won the trial. I'd say he would likely be favourite for this race, unfortunately. But this horse has strong form, but it's just I find it hard that defeat from Economics. I think that they would have had this horse ready to go for the Dante. Like, and a lot of Charlie Appleby's are needing the run. Like his 2-year-olds, he's having 2-year-olds beaten. He had a 2-year-old beaten yesterday at 6-4. Another one beaten that was worth about 500,000 sales, beaten the day before. So some of his are needing the runs as well. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, he's a Group 1 winner, so he has got to be respected. But I just don't know if he lacks that tactical pace. Like, I didn't see anything in the Economics race that said to me, okay, yeah, this horse is worth being 4-1, 5-1. At the same time, he's got the numbers and everything to match him with the likes of Los Angeles, and he's worthy of being at that end of the market. And I can totally see why a lot of people like him. The other negative is, I believe, Derby don't have a good record, full stop, in the Derby and Oaks. And I think they've had something like 15 runners and 0 winners. So that's another stat that he needs to crack. Yeah, okay, the Barwees have come close in other classics, but at the end of the day, like 2000 Guineas and stuff, but at the end of the day, there hasn't been a winner. So it's one of those that until there is a winner, you could say, well, I could just keep avoiding them until there is a winner. I can see why people will pick him, and he has got Group 1 form, which so he has to be respected. Obviously, all the front three, the markets are very predictable, Oaks and Derby. The Oaks has only one Group 1 winner. The Derby, the three Group 1 winners are the three favourites in the race. Um, Ambient Friendly was a horse I quite liked the return of, but had been beaten by Ancient Wisdom. So Ancient Wisdom had the beating of that horse, and the jockey switch I do not get, and now that has gone straight off my radar. Like the jockey switch to Robert Haviland is just, I don't get it. If Haviland was that good, he would have walked straight into that job that Schumacher took. Schumacher, no one's really, there was no big publicity of why Schumacher was getting the job. He just took over that job, and it makes no sense to me. So Robert Haviland taking over from a horse that's very quirky and Callum Shepherd had done a really good job with makes no sense. If the horse wins, so be it. Dancing Gemini, horse I really like and I was of consideration. I just think I had a look at the stride patterns and stuff like that, some of the weird things that you could look at for the drawn 15, so really wide. And I think this horse is a 10 I can't believe they're not running the French Derby after such a strong run in the French trial for it on Sunday. And I just think they've took a tilt because they think this race is wide open. It'd be great for obviously connections to win such a big race, but not for me. Macduff is one I'm interested in. So if I'm going for one at a bigger price, say on Saturday morning, I won't take a price now because obviously I'll wait for best odds. If I'm going for one at a bigger price, like 14 to 1, might be 20 to 1, something like that, Macduff is one that interests me. Yeah, okay, been beaten all three of his last runs, so maybe he's not going to be for everyone. But at the same time, he's out of Sea the Stars. He has got that pedigree. And obviously, he's been running at the shorter trips. He steps up to 12 furlongs. I think Arabian Crown stole the race when leading from the front and going off in front and taking this horse down. But he travelled very strongly into the race. Again, I go back to Ralph Beckett. Wasn't in great form, in much better form. His 2-year-old form, yeah, he wasn't winning, but he was running behind Ghost Rider. He was running behind good horses. He's got good form. He's got good numbers. He's not on the level of some of those who have obviously won Group 1 wins. He's about 10, well, let's have a look, 107. He is, yeah, 107 against the likes of 115, 111. He's almost £10 behind some of those, but he's only having his fifth start. And I do like the step up and trip. And of the bigger prices, he is the one for me. Voyage, as I said, if he wins, fantastic. That would be crazy. I cannot have a horse that's only had one run around such a quirky track as Epsom. I'm not going to go through all of the others below. I'm not saying they can't win. I actually think that it's more likely that a horse could win from these bigger prices this time because of the fact that it's just one of those races where the front end is wobbly. There's nothing guaranteed, like obviously with City of Troy, Ancient Wisdom. Ancient Wisdom, you could actually argue, if you're going to go into the whole training on, not training on situation, Ancient Wisdom actually trained more likely to train, not train on, in the fact that ran well, but ran £5 below. Me personally, I don't buy into this training on situation until you've had at least 3 runs. I think Ancient Wisdom will show a lot more like his 2-year-old form here. I will go through a few of these. So Dear Mile has been beaten by Ancient Wisdom, looked good at Windsor, and will be a few people's dark horse for the race as an interesting one. Euphoric is actually one that I do like. If you like Los Angeles, I find it hard to see how you can't like Euphoric. Mainly because obviously he was beaten by Los Angeles last time out, stayed on well, but is a much bigger price. Was only beaten a length. I do think Los Angeles, this horse was on his second run. Los Angeles was on his first. So I do think that there was obviously more improvements come from Los Angeles. I will take a flyer at one of the bigger price ones, but at the moment, Macduff is my win slash each way one. And the horse that obviously Los Angeles. Sorry, I missed Los Angeles. Los Angeles, another Group 1 winner last year. But I look at his form. He's coming in on the 4th run. He's become the wise guy horse. He's the same price as City of Troy. And if you compare their 2-year-old form, if you hear what the stable say, they wouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. There's £13 separating them on ratings, and you're really going on the fact that you're basically going on the negatives again. The negatives of City of Troy have brought the positives of Los Angeles stronger, and they've ended up meeting in the middle on price. And I just don't, I don't see the price being the same sort of disparity. Los Angeles, okay, I've got nothing really negative against him, but as he is a Group 1 winner, but I look at that Group 1 that he won last year, like I mean, that's not, you're beating Stunning Peach, Illinois, Bracken's Laugh. Like, Bracken's Laugh won this season, winning a Class 2, like a Class 2 running to 107 RPR. Like, we're not talking about world beaters. And then you look at the horses that City of Troy's beating, like Al Yunabi, Hartem's. Like, look at what Hartem's done this year. So I'm not saying Los Angeles can't win. I'm just saying that the price is dictating things now. So on to City of Troy. Obviously, I put him up last year, 14 to 1, 12 to 1. It always looks like a good bet till you get to the point, and then it's not a good bet anymore. He ran an absolute deplorable race in the 2000 Guineas. To me, it didn't look like a horse that didn't stay on. It just looked like a horse that just was not ready at all for the day. I was there at the 2000 Guineas. I've never seen a horse put in the pre-parade ring 2 races before, and that's what they did. He was in the pre-parade ring 2 races before, like a pony / statue. He must have done, I don't know, 30, 40 laps of that pre-parade ring on his own in the sunshine. Happy as Larry, just trotting around with his groom. Absolutely no care in the world. So relaxed, and just people just snapping away pictures, videos, all sorts. I've got no idea why they did it. Why every other horse, even so that was for the 2 races before, and then the race before, he was still the only horse going round and round. Everyone else was out on the car park before they all got brought through into the thing. The downside for that for me was the fact that he looked like he was just so relaxed that when he went down to the track to start, it was like he didn't switch on, and he almost fell out of the stalls. Then he was like, oh, this is a race. Got going, rushed himself up. I'm not saying like the whole way O'Brien, like his heart did this and stuff like that, but straight away I could see stood at the finish line. I could see already straight away the race was over. Like, Ryan's body language. Ryan is quite obvious with his body language. The way he was holding the reins, the way the horse was travelling, and his body language. Coming to like about 2-3 furlongs into the race, you were just like, this is not looking great. And then you could see the other jockeys, like a few of them having a glance over to see when's he going to start up in the ante, and he just never did, and the race was over before it even started. So if you want to say he's not trained on, okay, so what now? He ran to 84 RPR there, so that's 94, 104. That's almost £40 below his last run in the Dewhurst. So if you're saying he's not run off, that means basically he's saying he's not a horse anymore, pretty much. I would just completely scrub that run. Just pretend it doesn't exist. That was his first run out for O'Brien. O'Brien said he's done loads of things since that were wrong. He's obviously going to ramp him up. My concerns are from here is, will this be enough time for him to really ramp up the gears? People will go back to August Rodin. I don't compare to August Rodin at all. It's not that. It's what you're comparing against is to Aidan O'Brien. Aidan O'Brien, like, people forget the fact that it wasn't just August Rodin who bombed in the Guineas last year. Little Big Bear did as well, and then Little Big Bear came out and won a Grade 1, like a Group 1. So it's not just, he doesn't do it with one horse. He does it with multiple horses. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Only he knows what's going on, how quick he can get it. When you have a horse that finishes as powerfully as this horse does, where Ryan can't pick him up, you don't suddenly just, oh, he can't, he's not running anymore. Because if he's not running to form, or if he's not showing anything, he wouldn't be showing it at home either. Like, he wouldn't be. He's basically said there's no horses that can work with him. They can't get to the bottom of him, all this sort of thing. Like, they'd suddenly start getting to the bottom of him at home and all this sort of thing. So bottom line for me is, I've got no concerns of him running his race. The concerns, the two, well, one question mark and one concern. The one question mark is the step up in trip. I'm not a massive fan of going 8 furlongs to 12. That is a huge jump, going an extra 4 furlongs, especially for a horse that's not exuberant, but he's strong enough traveller. So that is a question mark. The other is Stall 1. Stall 1, I've gone back and I've watched through, and obviously there hadn't been a winner there hadn't been a winner this century. The last one was Oath, and then obviously Adyar won 3 years ago. But I've rewatched Adyar's run, and he wouldn't have won unless he got the breaks. And straight away it was a bit like Frankie Dettori on, was it Golden Horn or Cracksman when he won the Arc? He darted out, went straight across, and that's what Adam Kirby did. He got out, got straight across, and he was gone. And not gone as in a way, he was gone, he was in the front of the pack. The pack then caught up, and he ended up about, I don't know, 4th or 5th. But turning in, he was travelling, but he was in a pocket, and it was only because the horse just off the rail left a big enough gap for Adam Kirby to take it. If he hadn't left that gap, he would have had to go round. He could have got caught in pockets, all sorts. A bit like what happened to Westover a few years ago. And if you do have to do that, yeah, okay, he won it like the best horse on the day. He may still have won it, but it offers question marks. So I think whatever happens with City of Troy is going to take a Ryan Moore masterclass to get this job done. At the same time, I looked across and the horses that are in like Los Angeles in stall 4, but then you look across into stalls 2, 3, and 5. So 2 is Sadati. So that horse's RPRs, looking at numbers, you're looking at he's running to about 100. Cambu, his highest run is 73 and 81, which is mental to be in a derby. And then Mr. Hampstead, 83, 86, 89 again. So that we're talking about horses that are like 30, 40 pounds off City of Troy in like ratings and in RPRs. So to me, yeah, and I've looked through those as well. They're all horses that like to be prominent front runners. So City of Troy is going to come out from 1. These horses are 2, 3, 4, 5 are going to be coming out, and they're going to go to come across. But the thing is, they could obviously run their race in the first 2 furlongs by trying to keep City of Troy out, try and keep up with him or whatever. But if he breaks smartly enough and he makes his B dive across and he gets across, I can tell you now, if he gets across smoothly enough and he can get him settled back down into a rhythm, when that camera pans round, if he's in the front 2 or 3, 4 runners and he's got him settled, people are going to be getting excited and you're going to be looking thinking, okay, the draw wasn't such an issue. He's got no excuses from here. Let's see what he's got. At the same time, obviously he could go to do that and it could cause all sorts of chaos, races over in the first few furlongs. So for me, for anyone who's followed and you've done you've backed him at 12, 14, 16 to 1 or whatever, I'm going to play 2 bets likely. He's currently about 4 to 1, which would imply that when the exchanges go up properly, he's probably going to be about even money to place. So I will probably have the point that I've had on him to win. I'll probably have a point on him not to place. So then that way, if he doesn't place, then I'll get my money back for the win selection. Then that way, if he finishes 2nd or 3rd, then obviously I'll lose twice. But if he doesn't, then I just can't see where this horse is either going to be all out and hopefully win and win well, or the other possibility is if it's not going to plan, Ryan Moore's never one to bottom a horse. And especially as this is in reality only his 2nd run and there'll be plenty more races down the line for him. But I do still keep the faith, and as a lot for me, the biggest negative for this, nothing to do with training on, nothing to do with the horse. He was so much better than all of these horses as a 2-year-old, one of the best 2-year-olds we've seen in years and years and years. Got all the ratings. I don't buy that you just don't suddenly train on. As I said, you need to have at least 3 runs to prove that. My concern is the fact of, obviously he's got to show he handles the trip, which he should do, being by Justify. I don't worry about the ground because he's gone on soft ground. I know they said it didn't suit and he's like a Ferrari, etc., etc. But it's the and I do think the ground will be better. The biggest concern for me is the draw. I just don't like the draw. But like I said, if he gets in trouble getting across, I don't know how Ryan Moore's going to play it. He might settle him across and think, do you know what, there is a lot of dead wood in this race. I can bob and weave and I'll take my chances. He might just scream across. But if you are going to back City of Troy, go and watch some of the previous derbies and look at how far across stall 1 is, because it is a concern. However, I do think the reason why I still mention him and I still keep the faith, even if I didn't have a bet, I'd still want to be on him, is because of the price. I think the price, at the moment he's 4 to 1, and it'd be no surprise to see him continue to drift. If Ylang wins tomorrow and Ruby's or Red finishes 2nd, then okay, he might still end up that price or shorter or etc. around the 4 to 1. If she doesn't, everyone's going to go back to the O'Brien situation again and he will continue to drift. But for me, I think O'Brien's on for a big weekend and you'll see a big turnaround this weekend. So I have gone on for way too long and I do apologise. This is why I need a second guest so we can keep it short and sharp. But for me, I'm sticking with City of Troy. And I'll also be back in Macduff. So City of Troy and Macduff will be my 2. I might go for a flyer like 100 to 1 shot on the day just in case, because it is 4 places and you can get each way on them. But if I was picking, so my 2 will be City of Troy and Macduff. But if I'm picking a 1, 2, 3 just for like the TriCast, it will be City of Troy, Los Angeles and Macduff in either City of Troy. Obviously, you know how TriCast works, so like a reverse TriCast. So, but we'll see. So in summary for the Saturday, the bets are Regal Reality, Epicetus. Keep an eye on the one in the first, I think it's Persica. And then obviously City of Troy, I'm keeping the faith. And Macduff, I'll also back. Currently about 14 to 1, but I'll wait until the day. Hopefully get maybe 16s or 20 to 1. Whatever you're backing, good luck. I wouldn't be going mental. But at the same time, hopefully we get a winner. I do like Ylang, and I do hope that she shows her best and we see something special tomorrow. Good luck, welcome back, and hopefully I'll have a guest next time, so I'll keep it shorter. Thank you and goodbye.